a lecturer at Eden University under the Department of Nursing, and I'm also a mental health activist and a mental health nurse at the same time. So today we are just going to talk a little bit about mental health, the importance of one being mentally healthy, and stressing much importance on the students who are currently under study, and just giving a few tips on how these students can manage to keep up a good mental health outlook and resilience. So mental health is just a state of well-being in which one realizes their abilities. They also are able to cope with daily life stresses, and they're also able to make a meaningful and positive contribution to their society, and not merely the absence of mental illness. So like I have said, we are talking about you realizing your abilities, you coping with normal stresses of life, and you being able to make a meaningful contribution to the society or community at large. So when we say that, basically we're talking about mental health as not being mental illness. Because right now in the society, you find that whatever issues that have to deal with mental health, individuals link them direct to mental illness, but it's actually not how it is. Okay, what can make someone to slide into mental illness is the persistence of unhealthy patterns of the inability of one to know their abilities, know their strengths, the inability of one to cope with everyday stressors, the inability to also make a contribution to their society. So it is easy for one to slide into mental illness if certain symptoms that have run away from the normal persists. What I mean is, we all suffer from a certain level of anxiety in different stressful situations. We get stressed. We also get phobias. We fear certain things. But what can make one to slide into mental illness and be an individual to seek mental health services is the persistence of those symptoms of anxiety, of stress, as well as fear and others. Okay, so the causes of mental illness are quite a lot. So me, I can call them predisposing factors. What are some of the factors that can predispose one to having a mental illness? So number one, we can talk about brain chemistry. I'll just give a few because the list goes on and on. So when you talk about brain chemistry, in the brain, there are some chemicals that are called neurotransmitters. So these neurotransmitters help with mood as well as inhibition of certain abnormal patterns. But you find that there is an imbalance in those same neurotransmitters or chemicals that are found in the brain. This can lead one into having signs and symptoms as well as developing other mental illnesses. So I can give an example of one chemical that is found in the brain. So scientists discovered to say when a certain element called serotonin is low, it can lead one into depression. So an individual can notice that their mental well-being is not stable if there is a concurrent or existence or presence of certain unhealthy patterns, unhealthy thoughts. For instance, if you were an individual who was so much maybe into social activities, and suddenly you just find yourself no longer being interested in the things that you were interested previously, and you find yourself maybe being aggressive over certain issues that were not really an issue of concern to you. This is just an example. So those are some of examples that I can give of when an individual can notice to say that their mental well-being is not okay, or they are consistently having negative thoughts about situations that are not supposed to be. I would say yes, because your mental stamina also helps an individual, helps you rather to overcome certain feelings. For example, suicide ideation. This mostly comes in as a result of different types of personality disorders, as well as other types of psychiatric disorders like severe depression, where an individual will now start having these feelings of hopelessness, helplessness, and the only thing that they feel will relieve the symptoms that they're having is committing suicide. And some of the personality disorders where an individual maybe feels, because I'm not being paid attention to, I'm not given the love that I deserve, and hence one can have all those suicide ideas. So I would say yes, mental illness mostly is the highest cause of suicide. An individual who is having a mental illness that they feel to say maybe the only way out is suicide, the help that they can have, or the way out rather, is being open to talk about what you're feeling. Identify individuals or an individual. This can be someone you really trust, someone you really know, to say this person can help me. So you can identify an individual where you can be free to vent out, to air out your feelings, your fears, and what is making you maybe to have all these suicidal ideas. So the urge of being heard, the urge of feeling, of being helped, is also very important in overcoming suicide. So it is very important for individuals to also seek professional help. If you feel that an individual you've talked to cannot help you, we have a lot of hospitals around the country which are also helping individuals with all those thoughts that can otherwise lead to suicide. Okay, so my advice to students basically is just taking one day at a time. And we have the department where you find counselors and individuals who at least the students can open up in case they are finding it difficult to cope with everyday university life. Because eventually university starts out lighter, but the more the days and years are going ahead, the stress becomes too much, and some individuals really fail and they end up in abusing drugs. They end up in having certain types of personality disorders. They end up in also developing some certain types of mental illnesses that can predispose them or put them at a risk of committing suicide. So firstly, if you are a student, take one day at a time and do work in smaller parts or in bits and pieces, and also acknowledge and know your abilities and know where you stand as a student, and do not compete. Just know to say, this is my level, I know I can do better. And if you're feeling that maybe you cannot manage to handle stress, find someone, like I've said, to talk to, someone who can at least help you, who can guide you, and most importantly, put prayer first, put God first, involve God in everything that you do. You will not find it difficult to cope with stresses that happen in the university.